Hi, this is Mayor Jim Darling, and I'm here with Meeting with the Mayor, and we're very fortunate to have today our Congressman Vicente Gonzalez.
Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for being here.
Always fun to be in the city of McAllen.
Well, this is a telethon on census, and what we like to say is what we've been talking about is all census importance leads to Washington, D.C., because a lot of our funding does, and our representatives, your district will be decided by the census figures and all that. And so thought I'd give you an opportunity to tell you as from a congressman how important the census is to you.
Right. Thank you. And it's quite an operation y'all have going here. I really appreciate that. Getting counted, we can't put enough weight on the importance of assuring that every number of population in every region is counted, because resources come by our count, whether it's for education, for infrastructure, our hospitals, taking care of our medical care. We want to assure that the federal government knows how many people are in our region. It also impacts our representation. As you know, we get a member of Congress for about every 750,000 people. So as that population grows, so does our representation in Washington. In Austin, state reps and senators are redistricted according to population. But an interesting statistic, for about every 1,000 households that go undercounted, we lose about $150 million in resources over a decade. So we won't have another census for 10 more years. For every 1,000 households that go undercounted in Hidalgo County, we lose $150 million over the next 10 years. So we can't stress the importance of assuring that everybody is counted in every corner of our region.
Yeah, I think people are confused a little bit. For sure, for your congressional district, it stays the same regardless of what happens over the next 10 years based on this census that people are filling out. A little bit on funding depends on how many people are in a program, but the overall basis for the funding is a 10-year census.
That's right.
Once you're locked in, you don't get to change it over that
That's
10
right.
years period. And just some of the numbers we were looking at, just in 2016, for instance, $1 billion came to Texas in special education grants. And so, it touches every fabric of our society, the census and the impact on federal funding.
That's right. And, California loves us to go undercounted. And I can't stress that enough, because I was talking to a member from California about the outreach that we were doing in our region and how I felt that we weren't doing enough statewide to really assure that everybody was counted. He's like, I kind of like that. Like, you do? He's like, yeah, because we're losing population, so we're losing members of Congress, and we're losing resources. And if you guys don't do your job in Texas and make sure that everybody gets counted, we get to get credit for that. So our resources that are not used because we're not counted get absorbed in other places. So we need to really stay on top of our game, assure that everybody's counted, so we have the resources in terms of funding, and then also that we have the representation that we deserve. Texas should be getting another 2 members of Congress, maybe 3, depending how this count goes.
Yeah, and talk about that. What's so big deal? 3 more members of Congress. That's very, very important.
It is a big deal. We have, first of all, we have 3 more people that are fighting for the state, assuring that we have more resources, we have more influence on our committees, we have more influence for the state, that we have 2 or 3 more votes that are pulling for the same team. So it's certainly a big deal. And California is very concerned about them losing 2 or 3 members. Right. So just the way it's a big deal for us to grow, they're concerned about losing members because they realize the influence they lose and the resources they lose that go along with that.
And just think about this, the federal government, some of the money the federal government gives to us is giving money back to us that we spend. And Texas is one of those states where what we send to Washington is almost equal to or less than what comes back to us.
That's right.
And a lot of that's because we don't do a census very well compared to other states.
That's right. In our region, South Texas has historically been undercounted. I think our counties and our cities are doing a better job this time, but it's tough. I think much more could have been invested in outreach. And with a pandemic, it's kind of complicated to be knocking on doors, although I think some of that's going on still. I know that there was talk about shortening it a month. I think we should be extending it. And there's no rule that says the deadline is any date. We could actually be counting till the end of the year, and there's people in Congress that are still pushing for that. And I think the more time we have to assure that everybody's counted it's more beneficial for everyone, and including the government.
Well, and you know, they could do a special session to do redistricting, et cetera. In Texas, we can't recognize a census until September of 2021. So there's time to extend it and still meet the requirements in Texas from that standpoint, redistricting and all that. You know, we think a little bit about that is some people in Washington think they already got the people they want to be counted. And,
Right,
and
yeah.
so we think that's...
And you know, I hear people up and down my district saying, well, we should only count citizens. And you know, there's an argument for that, but I tell you, whether you believe that or not, even if you're opposed to having foreign nationals living in your community, they are taking up resources in your community, and you want to assure the federal government knows this, so you are not shortened in any way, whether it's healthcare, education, infrastructure, or so many other issues that are impacted by assuring how many people are counted.
You know, and we don't want to get into that immigration issue and protecting the border issue. The fact of the matter is, if somebody's over here and they're living here and they go to a health clinic or they go to a school to go to school, they're going to be accepted.
That's right.
And it's not our job, that's the federal government's job to preserve the order of the border, but it's our job to make sure we support all the people that live in our area, citizens or not.
Right.
And we don't...
Clearly, wherever you are on that issue, I can assure you that it's a benefit for everyone to be counted, regardless of where you are on that particular issue of immigrants or immigrants being counted. It is in everyone's best interest that every human being that is in our area is counted or accounted for, so we get properly compensated in terms of resources, in terms of representation, and everything else.
And the people that are here have health care that they need, so they're not spreading disease through the community, et cetera. I mean, it's just common sense, and it's not a political issue, you know, like the border is or whatever that's going on up there. It's a humanitarian issue, it's a common sense issue, it's a health issue.
That's right. I was recently talking to one of our ambulance services here in our district that was having trouble with the state because they were still being considered rural and they were getting less resources than other areas of the state in the middle of this pandemic, which really was impactful. And they were trying to communicate to the state, yeah, we're really not rural. We have probably 1 million people or more in the county of Hidalgo, so we're no different than most metropolitan areas around the state, and we surely deserve the same resources.
And now you know, there was a lot of publicity about the census and the information and citizenship and those kind of things, and that was taken care of, but there's still, I think, an aftershock, if you will, of people afraid to fill out the census because afraid of being deported or apprehended or whatever that is. And so, you know, that's not a reason not to fill out the census.
That's right, and we've been trying to communicate that to the community, that information is private. It's not used for any other purpose than to assure that you are counted. We should communicate that to people who may feel uncomfortable answering that census. It may not even be them, and maybe someone else in their household that isn't documented. But everybody should be counted.
And you're a congressman from Washington, D.C.
I am.
You look in there and tell them that you have nothing to fear on filling out the census.
That's right. I tell our community, you have nothing to fear. Your information will not be shared with anyone. This is private information used for the sole purpose of knowing how many people live in our community, to assure we're counted, to assure we have proper representation in Washington and Austin, but to assure our kids have the resources for their education, to assure our parents have the resources for their health care when they go to the hospitals, and to assure that we're taken care of, especially right now in the middle of a pandemic with health care issues and shortages of medical equipment. We want to make sure that we have everything we need.
Well, Congressman, thank you very much. I appreciate how you're taking time out of your busy schedule. I really do. And so, folks, you heard it here. So let's fill out that census. And thank you very much. It's Meeting with the Mayor.